Our story starts with a person floating in an odd space, too afraid to move toward the light. This person is then reincarnated as a baby in a temple. He finds himself surrounded by 3 frightening beings, a skeleton, a mummy, and a specter. So he cries violently as he is terrified, thinking they're going to kill him. To his surprise, they end up caring for him and give him the name William. Once he reaches 6 months, he starts to understand the language of the world, even if he can't speak yet. His mom takes him out of the temple for the first time, and he starts crying because the beauty of everything outside is just too much for him. Initially he thought he was in hell, suffering through a life that felt so aimless. But he soon realizes he was wrong. This isn't punishment, it's a blessing from God. By the time he's 3, he's already reading and writing like an adult. A ghost named Gus shows him the history of the world and the secrets of magic. William finds Gus a bit odd and overbearing, but he's definitely the smartest person he's ever encountered. Gus shows him how powerful words can be. He explains that whether you say them out loud or write them down, words hold a lot of weight. For instance, writing Ignis brings fire into existence, but if you add Irasure, that fire goes out. The mummy then takes him to a room filled with statues of the gods they worship. The god of justice and lightning called Volt, the earth mother called Mater, and the god of fire and technology called Blaze. There are a few more, but one statue in particular catches his attention, the goddess of light called Gracefeel, who is the child of the lightning god and earth mother. The mummy, whose name is Mary, tells him that Mater is all about nurturing and the earth's gifts, making her the most important goddess in her eyes, especially for those living in the countryside. He asks Mary if she prays to Mater daily, but she avoids the question and says it's time for dinner. At the table, Blood, the skeleton, tells William that when he's a bit older, he'll teach him how to hunt. However, Gus wants him to focus on learning magic first, saying that he might be just as brilliant as Gus. Blood chimes in, joking that he might end up being a grumpy old man with a big brain like Gus. William gets that Blood might look a bit scary, but he actually enjoys his company because he makes things lively and fun. Mary always brings bread to their meals, and he's curious about where it comes from, but she just winks and says it's a secret. The 3 of them keep many secrets, like why they're living in this place, why it's just the 3 of them, and the whole undead situation. William has never met anyone but the 3 of them since he was born. He's bursting with questions but can't ask them because he's hiding his own secret. He's a human with memories from a previous life. As he matures, he starts some intense training with Blood. He says, we got to build your muscle and stamina first, as skills are useless without the muscle to back them up. Blood also teaches him sword fighting and how to hunt in the woods. Gus, on the other hand, is helping him with magic, focusing on his pronunciation and explaining that no one can say a word exactly the same way twice. Gus says he'll start by learning how to use minor magic skillfully and accurately, but needs to try his best to get by without using it. When William asks how he plans to manage, Gus simply says, money. William asks how a ghost can be such a money worshipper. Gus explains that money is key because it fuels everything around them. He gets all hyped up just thinking about counting gold coins. Meanwhile, Mary is teaching William about other races, telling him that the 3 of them were once human. Before they died, they held on to intense emotions that led them to strike a deal with the god of the undead. The next day, Blood tells William it's time to get serious with his training since he's almost 8. William says, if I take a hit with your ridiculous strength, I'm dead. Blood says he'll be fine and challenges him to a duel. William tries to mix magic with swordplay to hold his own, but due to his lack of experience, he's unable to defeat Blood. Blood admits that William has a long journey ahead but is surprised by how much he's improving. William learns that Gus was once known as the Wandering Sage, famous for slaying monsters, calming wild rivers, and reviving ancient languages. Blood was known as the War Ogre, while Mary was referred to as the daughter of Mater. Even though they're undead, they consider each other family. Blood is like a foster dad, Mary a foster mom, and Gus a foster grandpa. One day, after training, he sees Mary bringing a piece of bread from a room. Although he was told not to enter that room, but he is too curious, and upon entering, he sees Mary's whole body surrounded by fire. He afraid that she will die, so he rushes to save her, but ends up severely burning his arms. Mary feels guilty for keeping secrets, knowing that while his hands will heal, the scars will remain. Gus explains that the bread is a gift from the Earth Mother, Mater, which leads William to ask why Mary was burning. She reveals that she betrayed Mater by becoming undead, and since they made a deal with the god of death, Stagnate, being near Mater's divine presence causes them to burn. After 5 years, William is now 13, and his training is becoming more and more difficult. Blood finds a low-ranked demon's body for him to practice against, and William takes it out with a surprising slash that impresses Blood. To push him further, Blood takes him to a ruined city that used to be inhabited by humans and dwarves, but now it's a dangerous haunt for the undead. Blood leaves William in a cave to see how he fares. When a bunch of undead show up, he handles them without breaking a sweat. Now he needs to find a way out, but he encounters a big demon, which is tougher than anything he's faced, and can use magic. He considers sneaking around it or taking a different path, but then thinks about what Blood would do and bravely faces the demon. The demon tries to cast a spell, but thanks to Gus's training, William counters it and charges in with his sword. His sword breaks on impact, but he still manages to defeat the demon. Since his sword is broke, he picks up the magic spear from the undead he just defeated, which was made by dwarves. Suddenly Gus shows up with a blank look, and uses his words to summon a golem to take on William. William easily defeats it but is confused to why Gus is trying to kill him. Just as he's about to finish Gus off, he pauses and says that hurting him would hurt more than dying. Gus apologizes, admitting he took that lesson too seriously. William is taken aback that Gus is trying to frame it as a lesson but keeps quiet as they head back to the temple. He notices Gus hasn't mentioned the cave incident and wonders why. So, he decides to keep it secret from Blood and Mary. William rushes into the room filled with statues of the gods. There Mary shares that Blood worships Blaze, the god of fire, while Gus is devoted to Whirl, the wind god. Blood promised Blaze he'd train hard every day to get stronger. Meanwhile, Mary told Mater she'd live in a way that honored her own wishes. She then informs William that Gus vowed to the wind god to live freely and enjoy life, as he despises being tied down. Fast forward a few years, and William has really bulked up. One evening, after finishing a training session with Blood, he's hanging out when Blood brings out some homemade alcohol for them to enjoy. They end up getting a bit tipsy, and Blood suggests they sneak a peek at Mary while she's changing. But as they're spying, Mary trips and opens the door. She asks Blood what he gave William to drink, and Blood dodges the question, saying they were just going to have a quick look while she changed. William says he warned him not to do it, but then Mary gets angry and slaps him hard. The next day Blood intensely spars with William. He is like a storm with his attacks, so William is finding it hard to get in a strike without being hit. William then pulls out an epic move, using his shield to block Blood's sword so he can use it as a ramp to take him down. Just when he was about to strike, Blood throws him away like a piece of trash. William concedes and Blood says having no muscles really is a disadvantage. Blood then gives him a surprise gift, the most powerful of all the demon blades he owns. William is confused because he didn't even win. But Blood explains that it's to mark his new independence. The sword is called Overeater. And if a living being is cut with this blade, its wielder recovers life force with each cut. He also says that the more he uses it, the more dependent he'll become. Until he's so weak that there's nothing left of him, and that's probably part of what makes it a demon blade. Now that William is old enough, Mary and Blood decide to tell him the secrets about the king among demon kings, who tried to conquer their continent. Around 200 years ago, the demon kings led a great uprising. An army of countless demons invaded the continent, so the place was crawling with demon kings and generals. These swarms of demons offered up massive amounts of flesh and blood in a number of great rituals to their deity, the god of dimensions. The High King went on a rampage in their continent. Blood explains that his nicknames don't even come close to the truth, adding that his abilities were absolutely insane. He could turn any blood he shed into soldiers and any flesh cut from his body into commanders in unlimited amounts. In other words, he made demons from his own flesh and blood. Only blades could harm him, as arrows and magic wouldn't even leave a mark. Blood says his weapon of choice was Overeater, which shocks William. Mary explains that eventually, he came to be called the High King, meaning the king of all kings. Blood admits that even with Gus's magic and Mary's blessing, he couldn't stand up to the High King. Being undead means he can't grow or improve his sword skills any further. Since they couldn't take down the High King, Mary and Gus decided to seal him away deep in the land. It turns out that Gus, Mary, and Blood are tied to this city through their contract with Stagnate. If they join his undead army, he promises to wipe out all the demons in the city and let them protect the seal in their immortal forms. William realizes he was meant to be a sacrifice to break the High King's seal. But after the demons that brought him there were defeated, they chose to keep him and raise him as one of their own. They thought humanity was extinct, but since demons managed to bring him, it means there's a human settlement nearby. Now William understands why he's there, and is about to enter a nation of survivors from the Great Uprising. A little while later, Mary and Blood tell Will how much they love him and how strong and smart he is. William feels confused because it sounds like they're saying goodbye for forever. Suddenly a creepy portal opens up in the sky, and out steps the notorious High King. He asks if they've finished their farewells since he's come to collect the souls of Blood and Mary. Will is frozen in place, unable to move. Just then Gus shows up and tells William to grab Blood and Mary and get out of there, saying he'll handle the High King. Gus unleashes his most powerful magic, thinking he's taken care of the High King, but then he gets paralyzed too, along with Mary and Blood. It turns out the High King split his power into two forms just in case something like this happened. He leaves William alone and offers him a deal: join his undead army, and he'll let William live peacefully with his undead family. He gives William until evening to decide. That night William goes to confront the High King and boldly declares, "I'm not giving you anything." Stagnate summons his undead army, hoping to impress them with his skills. He pauses and asks William again if he wants to join him, having developed a fondness for him. Stagnate offers him a spot as a general in his undead ranks and even cuts himself, urging William to drink his blood. Just when it looks like William might go for it, he pulls out the sword that Blood gave him and attacks Stagnate instead. In response, the High King unleashes a demon snake that bites William, and suddenly he finds himself in a bizarre place that feels oddly familiar. There he encounters the Goddess of Light and ultimately makes a deal with her, promising to uphold his resolve in exchange for her protection and guidance. When he wakes up, Stagnate is bummed that William chose to ally with Gracefeel instead of joining him. The undead try to take down William, but they stand no chance against him. Then Stagnate vanishes in a cloud of dust, and William is left wondering where he went. Gracefeel appears next, leading William toward the temple, and he uses his acceleration ability to get there quickly after realizing that the High King is after Blood and Mary. When he arrives, the High King is just about to kill Blood. William tries to stop him but knows he will not make it in time. But suddenly a goddess appears who William doesn't recognize. And after saying goodbye, he realizes that the Earth Mother never hated Mary for accepting Stagnate's deal. Mary starts to cry, and at that moment Stagnate casts a lightning spell at William, but he stops it with his magic and takes advantage of this opportunity to charge with his sword. And begins to hit Stagnate with a vicious flurry of attacks. William ends up defeating the High King. And after we see him vanish completely, everyone is very excited and congratulates William. However, when they're about to leave, Mary and Blood fall to the ground. They tell William that since they lost their attachment and denied selling their souls to Stagnate, their time has come to an end. William begins to cry and asks if there's anything he can do, as he doesn't want to lose them. However, they tell him that there's nothing he can do, but they're proud of who he has become, and want him to stay on the right path. William then begins to see pictures above their heads from when they were human. Then Gus arrives and the four of them enjoy their last moments together. After Blood and Mary die, the goddess takes their souls and they will go back into the cycle of death and rebirth.